Hello, my friends. So today I am in a different location in India, and I'm sorry if this appears a little blurred. I did my best to adjust the lighting, but this is what I got. So today I want to share some reflections, as usual, on the nature of reality. So let's reflect on the following. We think of ourselves as biological organisms. So I'm a biological organism, and this biological organism is a visitor on planet Earth. And there's an independent world out there that this biological organism is interacting with. And that world contains space, time, energy, information, and matter. Matter includes everything from atoms and molecules, but also force fields, because matter and energy are the same. And of course, there's gravity. But in any case, this biological organism, which is made of matter, which means elements and forces like electromagnetism, strong and weak interactions, and of course, held together by those forces, but also in the larger scheme, surviving because of a force that is not that force, not the electromagnetic force of the strong and weak interactions, but another force, usually termed gravity. But now we're being told that gravity is not the same kind of force, even though it's experienced as a force. It's the curvature of space-time. So in some way or the other, space-time, energy, information, matter are all interrelated. That's the best word I can think of. They could be one entity, and they probably are, which is the direction I'm leaning in this conversation. But they're anyway interrelated: matter, energy, information, space-time, and gravity. Interrelated, and everything that we call so-called objective reality is made of these. You, me, the lamp behind me, the curtains, the room, the automobiles, the buildings, the stars, the galaxies, the trees, the minerals, the rocks, the atmosphere. All of this is just that. And that seems to be the way our current science operates. You and the rest of the world. Of course, everybody else thinks me and the rest of the world. Notwithstanding that, that is our model of reality at the moment. A theater of space-time and causality in which we participate as separate individuals, separate from each other and not made of the same stuff as or made of the same stuff, but separate from the stuff that makes up the theater of space-time and causality. Of course, it's the same stuff, yet it feels separate. There's me and the universe. Okay, so now let's think of another way of looking at the same experience. What if the biological organism is not who you are? What if the biological organism is a mode of observation? 5 senses, right? Each with their Umwelt, or narrow band of experience. So this is an instrument to observe. But of course, it observes through the conditioned mind. You have to have a mind in order to interpret what you observe. Fundamentally, all you observe, literally, are shapes, colors, forms, sounds, noises, textures, tastes, and smells. But then the mind kind of interprets them, uses the vocabulary of this sensory experience, and constructs the notion of objects. The notion of objects: a physical body, a lamp, a curtain, a bracelet, and a watch, and on and on. The notion of objects is a mental experience. So the instrument of observation then is not only the five senses, but also how those experiences of the five senses, which are just modes of experience, how they're interpreted. Those modes of experience, how they're interpreted by the human mind, gives rise to the notion of objects. And similarly, experience gives rise to the notion of space-time, causality, of electromagnetism, of strong and weak interactions, gravity. Before we can label those entities as such and such, they have to be an experience. Okay, because without having the experience, you can't have the concept. The concept follows the experience, and that concept is what we see as the world. That concept is what we see as the physical body and the physical world. In other words, everything that you experience and the way you relate to it is a concept. Your body is conceptual, and so is the universe conceptual. And this is the instrument that gives rise to both the qualia that are experienced and also how they're interpreted, because they're being interpreted by the human mind. Now, just like Homo sapiens, the organism, biological organism, is an instrument of observation, so too every biological organism, from insects to caterpillars, insects, to birds, to owls, to snakes, to dolphins, to whales, to elephants, to camels, to bears, to lions, to the innumerous range of biological species, innumerable. All of them are different modes of observation, all of them. And each of them is observing the same reality, whatever that reality is, quite differently, very differently. Each of these is experiencing the world quite differently, and each of them must experience the world as theirs. That's the world. It's the objective world. Of course, other species don't have concepts, but they're still experiencing something, and it's their environment, which is totally suited to their instrument as well, the instrument that's observing a camel, a giraffe, a horseshoe crab, a dolphin, a snake, an owl, an insect with multiple eyes, a chameleon with eyeballs swiveling on two different axes, all experiencing the same entity, whatever it is, reality, as a different world, and perfectly suited to that. The world and the organism go together. So now let's call this whole experience as an experience that needs three entities: an observer, a mode of observation, and that which is observed. The mode of observation and that which is observed. So the observer, let's call that observer a particular species of awareness, particular species of awareness. And then let's call the instrument a modified way of observing that species of awareness. This is an instrument that is a modified expression of the species-specific observer. And this instrument then experiences a world which is species-specific as well. But all that is happening in a field of awareness. The field of awareness is actually modifying itself as the species-specific observer, the species-specific mode of observation, and the species-specific experience that is called the world. In other words, there are as many worlds as there are modes of observation and species-specific observers, and that which is observed, as many worlds as instruments of observation. Multiple worlds already here. Don't need to go into multiverse theory. Right here in consciousness, we see consciousness differentiating into innumerable observers, innumerable modes of observations, and innumerable universes or worlds thus revealed, all within itself. One consciousness. That one consciousness is all observers, all modes of observation, and all observed so-called worlds. But they're all differentiating from a single field of awareness. And so when we go past the fluctuations of the mind, the vrittis, sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, which are very species-specific, we end up with the species-specific observer, and that we call the silent witness. But as we abide in the silent witness, then even the observer falls, and all that's left is a formless, irreducible, fundamental, eternal, spaceless, timeless field of possibilities. And that field of possibilities is a field of consciousness, Chitakash. And it is differentiating into all experiences that we call the multiverse in our own planet right here on this species-specific planet, because this planet has innumerable species. But as I've read in the Yoga Vashishta, there are other worlds that are suited to the species and the instruments of observation that they experience. And therefore, there are inconceivable worlds as well, depending on the species of observation, the biological organism, that is the mode of observation. So if we think in subjective terms, this is what you see, that space-time, energy, information, and matter are symbolic representations of the one self that is differentiating into innumerable modes of knowing and experience, resulting in innumerable worlds that are experienced, all within itself. The observer is frequently in Sanskrit called Rishi, the mode of observation, because observation mode is a divine kind of thing, the instrument that actually exposes or reveals a particular world. And so that mode of observation is called Devata, and that which is experienced is frequently called Chandas. And the togetherness of all these three, Rishi, Devata, Chandas, knower, knowing, and known, seer, seeing, and scenery, observer, observing, and observed, knower, knowing, and known, and on, lover, loving, and beloved, etc., is all one field of awareness, infinite and unbounded and borderless and formless and inconceivable and unimaginable, but appearing as all this, all this simultaneously in many realms of experience. Today, science is trying to understand the nature of the universe, and many models suggest multiple universes or multiverses And I think the objective science, which is the modeling of subjective experience, is going in the same direction, except right now, objective science assumes that everything is observer independent, which is impossible to actually prove. Also, current science believes in subject-object split, and current science has a bottom-up approach. Matter creates experience, when in fact matter is an experience itself. So who are we? What are we? We are that which differentiates into universes, go beyond all the vrittis, including the individual witnessing awareness, and what's left is that. So take everything away that you are not, and then what's left is you. But then you go back again and see that everything that you are not is actually a modified expression of you as well. There is nothing other than you, and that you is divine. That you is inexplicable awareness, without which there is no notion of a universe and no experience of a universe or anything that we call reality. So either way, take away everything that you're not, and you end up with all there is. And if you actually look at everything that you're not, that too is an expression of you. All there is. There's only you, the divine self. And knowing that is liberation from concepts. And knowing that is also liberation from suffering, because all our suffering comes from concepts, literally concepts. Otherwise, there's just consciousness bubbling up with qualia, no inside and no outside. In fact, the instrument of observation, which we call the biological organism, is also a modified form of the same observing self. The observing self is the divine. Ultimately, there is only the divine. Everything else is an appearance of the divine. Everything that we call reality is an experience of the divine, knowing itself, experiencing itself, conceptualizing itself, labeling itself as that. Take care, and I hope this resonates.